They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight is going to rock your world and rip apart the foundations you think you stand on, while also giving you a sliver of a chance to make it out the other side with some semblance of life and sanity. Rogueways is honored to host the man whose work the government secretly studies, the man who uncovered ancient lies woven over centuries, the man whose work has been plagiarized by the highest authorities, and the man who has unveiled the nature of the cyclical destruction that will soon return to wipe out literally everything on the planet in a horrible cataclysm of fire, dust, darkness, and ice. Professor Doug Vogt, who I always want to refer to as Dr. Doug Vogt somehow. Welcome to Rogueways.
That was actually funny. Yeah, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, I just think of you as one, so you get that honorary title from me at least.
It's okay. Well, thanks for inviting me, and hopefully your audience will enjoy this and learn a lot.
I think they will learn a lot. I've learned a lot just by the very minor fraction I've been able to dig into your work. So it's very exciting, and I can't wait to dig in more. And I just want to remind everyone listening out there that the 3 days of brightness retreat is all about uplifting your soul, heart, mind, and body, and then spreading that out to the darkened masses. So me and some master teachers and practitioners have put together practice and presentations that embodies all of the goodness that you love in Rogueways. So come thrive with us by grabbing your spot from rogueways.org in the classes and tarot section. And don't forget, there are one-day passes now available, and you also can get a massive discount to the 3-day cost if you go support the show at rogue.locals.com, which you see at the bottom of your screen here and in the links below. So go check it out. And Doug, we always start the show with a traditional pointless question of the episode. And so the pointless question I was going to ask you is, what are some of the simple joys that you are currently still able to enjoy in life, even though so many things are crumbling around us?
Gardening.
Yeah, that's good.
And let's see what else. Some of the research I do is very enjoyable for me, but I think since I came across this stuff or figured it out, I've been kind of driven to just publish those books and do the videos to explain this, how the universe really works, which is in series 1. You'll find it on Diehold Foundation's channel on YouTube. I have about 51 videos now. And I started, the first one was in March 14th, 2018. It's called Pi Day. And by coincidence, that was the same day that Stephen Hawking's died.
Oh, wow.
I didn't plan it that way, folks. It's just, he died, and that was my first video.
How interesting.
I think the important thing people have to remember is this. The philosophy has to come first. In order to figure out any great secret, you have to have the correct foundation philosophy, or else I'll give you a very good, for instance, or a model. If you have a 10,000 piece puzzle, but you don't have a picture to where these pieces go, then you pick up a piece, but you don't know where it fits.
Yeah.
You have no idea where it's going to be. And that's what's happened to science right now. And the reason being is that we have inherited this matter-oriented theory of existence. Almost all people do not know why we have it. And it's because the Romans, namely the Calpurnius Pisos, basically created it, concocted it through their writings of Aristotle. You'll see that in video series 12, part 1. Part 2 gives you a reason why the Calpurnius Pisos created it. But like one of the Roman emperors said, there are 8 authors to Aristotle. And the only real reference you find of Aristotle that's Greek, was one author, and he mentions him in one part of a sentence as an admiral in Alexander the Great's navy. Nothing else.
Wow.
He doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And everything after that was created by probably Gaius Calpurnius Piso, who was the father of Arius, and certainly his uncle Lucius Calpurnius Piso. And from there on, Cicero was one of the first contributors of it. In that video, I actually showed the chain of custody, where the manuscripts came from Greece to Rome, who had them, the general who had them. And you can clearly see it. The proof is irrefutable. I am a scholar in Roman history, besides all the other things I've dabbled in. And I could thank a friend of mine, Bernard Green, the late Bernard Green, and he wrote as Abelard Reichland. So anyway, back to the philosophy. If you have my information theory of existence enabled me to basically leapfrog everybody, because I was able to explain some of the most difficult phenomena in physics, like what is time, what is light, gravity, etc. And one of the first things I had figured out was that the clock cycle in the synchronous system was in fact the polar reversal and the cataclysm. Oh, the cataclysm we call it. By the way, it's a Greek word, cataclysmos, and it means combustion of the world.
Oh, wow. That's a good
That's what
hint.
it really means. The combustion of the world. That's what cataclysmos means.
That's pretty intense.
That's in essence why I was able to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
I have three, video section 8 is on Abraham, 9 is on Joseph, which is probably the best story in the Torah of what happened to Joseph and what he did. And then finally, volume 3 is on the Exodus. And I'm the first person in 2,600 years that found the real Mount Sinai and all the altars that Moses mentions in Exodus and Leviticus. So you see them all, including the second expedition I did. The clues that Moses gave was that Abraham's altar was there. And we planned it on the full moon, and I hiked up at about 11:30 at night. So my Egyptian guides and stuff like that wouldn't know what I was doing. And I dug a slit trench on the western side of the sacrificial altar, and lo and behold, what did I see? The two base stones, big stones that were part of Abraham's altar, exactly as Moses gives the clues. I mean, it was all he left all the clues. He did a great job. What's happened over the thousands of years, especially in the 19th century, in Germany, the Germans wanted the Jews to translate their books into German. And they had a reform movement then. And at that point, they didn't believe there was a Moses, no Abraham, no Joseph, no Exodus. In other words, that's what they believe now in academia. Well, Bible's nothing, just also written over 700 years. So when I found all the altars and even Belzephon where the crossing was and stuff like that, fictional people do not leave physical evidence behind. That's just the way it is.
That seems pretty logical.
The only thing he lied about was that he and Aaron were related to the Ephraimites, and there were no Levites. They had all died off. And I proved that, and it's in the book, and it's also on the videos. The reason this relates to the science stuff, people say, why is he mentioning that? If they first came to this stuff, is because this. One of my books, Creation of the Hebrew Alphabet, this.
Yes.
This was indexed by the Library of Congress, QA 76.889. QA 76 is mathematics. .889 is quantum computing.
I hope everyone just listened really close.
This was indexed really by the CIA, as well as my other book, God's Day of Judgment. A title like this, God's Day of Judgment, indexed Q175, which is philosophy of science. Just like my first book, Reality Revealed, was first indexed parapsychology, and then I did a radio interview of Laura Lee in November of, 93. By April 2nd, 94, I was in Washington, D.C. around the 16th of April. And I went to them and said, why did you index the book? That was only one chapter on parapsychology. And she said, she looked it up and she said, this was re-indexed by one of the intelligence agencies on April 4th. And I showed in the last video, the printout from the Library of Congress, line printer stuff. This was line printers. And you clearly see it. And it's, and most of my books now are being indexed by them. But what Moses had pulled out was 2 tables or tablets. They weren't stone. I explain why an 80-year-old man is not carrying 110, 120 pounds of stone on his back, several miles, quite a few miles, out of the cave, up and around the mountain where they were in camp. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Nobody could do it. It was different. And they give the clues in the legends of that it was like something you rolled up. But anyway, what the alphabet is 22 views of a waveform that it represents the carbon atom as it comes into this dimension.
I want everyone to really listen to that as well, like really hear what that means. It's
video series 2. And it's profound. It took me about 7 or 8 years to figure out all the letters. But you look at this toroid shape with a waveform in it. The waveform is a modified square wave. And I explain why. And you look at the thing, and 22 views of this thing, very organized, every 45 degrees around the thing, top and bottom. And then the other one is, you look at it at a certain angle, and the formula is 1 over the square root of E gives you the arc cos of 52.66 degrees. The Great Pyramid of Giza is 52.606 degrees,
wow.
like 54 hundredths of a degree off. In other words, they built that Great Pyramid based on a formula. It's presenting a philosophy of how the universe really works. What an arc cos is, you have an angle like this, but what it says is 90 degrees from that vector is a plane. That plane is our physical world, like physical matter world.
It's like a reflection almost.
No, it's not that.
Okay.
It's like a motor 90 degrees out of phase from a magnetic field, you create electrostatic field.
Okay.
And vice versa. So you understand, it's important. It's how our matter world is created. And the people who built that Great Pyramid did it. And also the people who created those 22 symbols, they're telling us something important. It's more of a philosophy. But remember, I could never have figured this thing out unless I had this foundation philosophy, this information theory of existence, which I call the theory of multidimensional reality. A lot of people have copied me over the years, over the last 42 years. It was copyrighted in 1977. So, but anyway, what he brought out was just 2 of the tablets. Those 2 tablets, I think, it's a computer program. There's no question about that. When you see the book, and you see what I have in the videos, you convert the vectors to a plane, and it creates an 8-sided prism with a top and a bottom. Then 8 of the letters form an octahedron, full octahedron. And the last 4, the least used letters in the Torah, have just the top of the pyramid that's offset by 45 degrees. So when you look down at 2 pyramids, one overlapped to the other, you got the 8-pointed star, which is the Mandela, which you see over the total Middle East and the Far East. And when you read what is believed about the Mandela, what it represents, it's the same thing as information and what I say the Diehold is. There's no difference. So now you know where they got it from, this Hebrew alphabet thing, or the people who created this thing. It is, in essence, there's 7 myths about the Torah, which is in the book and also in the videos. And they only point to one thing, and that is an operating system. The people who put that technology in that cave was tens of millions of years more advanced than us. Literally, not a joke. And what they did, they actually knew the program that creates us. And one of the things I found in the 304,805 symbols we have in the Torah, there is a certain verse that's repeated about 110 times. And amazingly enough, that's how many of the natural elements there are in the periodic table. Now I'm going to start studying it more and see if they break it down to how we group gases, metals, and other things. If it is, then we've got the beginning of the program. But you have to understand what I'm telling you. This is literally the reason why it's so holy is this is the program that creates our reality.
This is like the base code of the operating system.
It's literally the operating. We call this operating system God. That's who God is. It's the operating system. So when they built in video series 10, I go into, in volume 3, I go into how the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant worked, and I show what I think this thing looked like. What he had built was a flame speaker. That's what it was.
What's a flame
speaker? What's a flame speaker? Yeah. Faraday is the one who first discovered this, what I'm about to tell you. If you modulate a high voltage frequency through ionized particles like dust or gas, you get perfect sound. You got it?
Yeah.
So when it says the people, they put up the tabernacle after they got there, and they turned this thing on. It was so loud, everybody was deathly scared, and they all ran for their lives. It was creating the sound, and they heard the operating system God talk through this, a flame speaker. That's why there's no chimney in the tabernacle. There's 3 layers of cloth and skins, but there's no chimney. So where'd all the smoke go?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
This whole thing it's all related to the whole thing. And the reason is it's a complicated story. I don't expect anybody to fully grasp it until you see all the videos and you digest it slowly. Most people tell me you have to see these things 2 or 3 times.
I believe
let it sink in. Even the books they have to read more than once. But this is how the universe really works. And in video series 1, I go through some of the most difficult things you can imagine. And even prove there is no black holes. And if you want to know why, I'll tell you. It's very simple. And Stephen Hawking, his last paper, which he had published only after he died, real brave guy, he mentions holograms through the whole thing. And one of the videos, I think it was video series 1, part 8, I go through what the whole sequence was and his papers. And he changed about 2011. One of his papers has a reference of a guy who was talking about the universe as a hologram. And after that, he did change. You could see by the conditional statements in his papers. And then finally, the last one had no conditional statements that I remember. And he mentions holograms, I think, over 20 times, 30 times. He's basically saying, he's disavowing everything he said from his PhD thesis, which I have a copy of, and all those papers about black holes. You got the picture? Do
you think he intentionally misled people, or do you think he finally realized?
No. He evolved to it. He did evolve to it. Okay. It would have been nice if he was brave and before he died, but I think he was somewhat of a coward. And his later papers, I don't think were published. They were free access. I was able to get my hands on them, and I read all of them. Like I said before, figuring out how the universe really works and applying that to the Ice Age and polar reversal is not an easy thing. I don't blame these professors for not figuring it out. It's not their fault that the foundation philosophy was superimposed on all of us. We've been lied to, very plainly.
Yes.
There was this other philosophy out there. That's the story about the cave that's in Plato. That reality is like the shadows that we see on the wall. That's an information theory of existence. That is a Jewish idea of how the universe really works. And he hints he's related to it because he said, we are related to 12 proud tribes. Well, the Greeks weren't. They had the Ionians and the Dorians. It was 3 tribes and 4 tribes, a total of 7. And they later numbered them to 10, but never 12. Nobody had 12. What people have to understand, and even the alleged scholars, you have to read between the lines. You have to. With the Torah stuff, it was very difficult because Moses has 10 code systems. And I figured all of them out. And I think the only one, there's some the rabbis knew about, but there's others that they had no idea. Like the number 12,068 is embedded in the Torah. That's the exact number of years between polar verses.
I was going to say, that is the right number of years. Okay.
Yeah, I figured it out in 94, and it's in 1989, I made that database of all known stars, open clusters, and globule clusters in the Stein Telescope Survey 2000. And this tells you I spent way too much time in libraries. It's technical libraries.
You spend the perfect amount of time in libraries because then you get to bring us all of this mind-blowing information.
You got it. I don't know how my wife tolerated it. She went to the magazine section.
Yeah.
So, and I found 6 blank periods in space, and 5 of the 6 were 12,068 light years apart. And then when I figured out the length of the sacred cubit, then almost all the numbers that were in the Torah, certainly for length and a lot of others, distilled down to the 12,068, 6,034. In fact, the number of chapters and verses in the Torah are 6,034, half the number.
Huh.
It's not an accident.
Yeah.
And then 3,017, or 2 times the number and 3 times the number. It's explained in the video. I think it's video series 12 is the code systems, Moses code systems. So you could read it there and see it there, but you could see how it relates. And this is the part that I have to, why am I talking about Torah and Bible stuff when it's the polyversal and the cataclysm that's so really on everybody's mind? There's 2 ways to save your rear end on this thing. One is you physically go through this whole thing and you build caves or big pyramids, and you have to live through either 11 or 22 years of darkness until the sun starts producing more light.
Yikes.
And the snow, don't even ask. Yeah. Like I mentioned in series 4, part 5, F and G, you're going to be snowed in. If you're in the northern hemisphere, you got to be within 10 to 15 degrees of the equator. That's what will melt first. Everything else, you're going to have a lovely ice age for 50, 70, hundreds of years in many cases.
So even the equator is going to be 11 to 22 years before the snow is free. For
several reasons. The whole world gets white. Trust me on this one. It gets white. When I found evidence, or a geologist found evidence of it's like a small mountain or hill that's been carved by a glacier, and it was in Namibia, and that's on the Tropic of Capricorn. Got that? The Tropic of Capricorn, and it has evidence of a glacier. There was another one where the Blue and White Niles meet in Ethiopia. And there was a glacial lake, a dam. And there was a lake that went from there, which is about 16 degrees latitude north, all the way to Lake Victoria. About 16 degrees, it was one big lake. They found even the shoreline of it 50, 60 feet above where the Nile is now. Wow. Was one big lake. Mm-hmm. And when the dam broke, the ice dam broke, like in British Columbia, the Columbia River rather, it scoured out part of the Niles down to bedrock. I mean, it's a huge amount of water. Yeah. And now you understand what's going on. Okay, so why does it relate to the Torah? There is an easy way to survive this thing, and I give the clues of it, and it's in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy was not written by Jeremiah, which some alleged scholars say. They know nothing, these people. They're dumber than slugs. They're so lazy. They don't know. These priests had 3 names. They had a given name when they were born. They had a priestly name when they went into the priesthood. And then finally, if they were the eldest son, the father died, and he was the high priest, they became the high priest, and they adopted a prophet's name. Got it? So what was Jeremiah's given name? Shaphan. He was the scribe that the king gave this lost book of Moses that was in the temple. Nobody knew it. They found it then. Probably Solomon hid it and gave it to Shaphan. That means he was probably less than 20 years old. He was a scribe. He must have been very, very gifted. And he's the one who did the translation. And that's why some words he used are words that they only had after the Exodus, probably in time of David and beyond. See, it's a complicated story, but he's got the clues of how to survive the thing the easy way. Now, it's in the book, and it's also, I hint at it and give some of the clues in the videos. But there's two ways of doing it. And I think maybe the operating system God is giving us a clue. That's the other way to go. It's complicated, I know. That's why no one in history figured this stuff out. You have to have this information theory of existence. Otherwise, you won't know this is a clock cycle. Those people who say, I'll give you, for instance, a couple of them. I've read about all of the theories of what could have caused the Ice Age. Some of these theories go back to the 1950s, like Velikovsky. You think Venus was a comet because it had a tail on it. Well, I got news for you. It has an atmosphere, and when the sun hits it, the dust shell hits it, it's going to drag atmosphere in. And if you look at the Earth from the side, you also see we'd have a tail too. So are we comets? No. He didn't think about that. But I've seen all of them. The latest one was first started by Paul Levolette, that there was these galactic dust shells or super dust shells that go through, and they hit a solar system, they hit the sun, and some magically they cause planets to have polar reversals and stars to nova. There's several problems with this, which is beyond, I feel it's like beyond stupid. It's so easy to prove wrong. One is, if they had that much dust, it would have to be greater than 1 million particles per cubic centimeter.
Wow.
That's greater than what Parker had said, which is 4 or 5 or 10 atoms per square centimeter. And if it was that dense, we couldn't see past it. But we have no problem seeing stars around us.
Yeah.
The second one was so obvious. Assuming this thing isn't traveling at the speed of light, it's coming towards us in a band. And supposedly one of them said 150 to 200 years is going to be here. I call that disinformation. In that case, you should be able to see not hundreds of stars that have novaed, but tens of thousands novaing from our point, which are less than 10 or 9,000 or 8,000 light years from us. We see none, zero,
wow,
because the theory is bullshit. It's disinformation. It's what it is. Those are two examples. It's easier proof. And I have it in part 9 of series 1. I go ahead and prove it. I go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is the frustration I have. And the reason I fight it so much is the CIA would love it that everybody would understand that, oh, this isn't going to happen for 100 years, 150 years. This dust show is going to happen and nonsense. While they're spending, well, I showed in series 5G, they aren't accounting for $21 trillion in government spending for HUD, $21 trillion, as well as Defense Department. Now, the thing that gave it away, which is really stupid on somebody's part, is they mentioned HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And what did they spend on? Building buildings, moving dirt. So if you see a bunch of bills for contractors of moving dirt and construction equipment and supplies, you think nothing of it.
Yeah.
But what was it really for?
Excavating tunnels. Yeah.
Which they labeled as a shelter. In part 5G, it clearly showed DARPA actually had the goal, about 4 months after I got done with the majority of my videos for section 4 on the causes of the Ice Age. Within 3 to 4 months, they must have realized, oh my God, he's right. And then they had a contest. July of 2019, just recent.
Really recent.
Yeah. And the whole contest was to robotics companies to build a robot to go through a tunnel system, cave system, and identify certain things. And it showed a sign, which means it had to read ASCII text and no, it said shelter hole.
Yeah.
So now you know right off the bat what this cave is all about.
Shelter.
It's for shelters.
Yeah.
They blatantly showed it, which is really dumb and stupid. And
Well,
they
they
showed
think
a
we're
fire
too
extinguisher.
stupid to ever figure it out. So luckily we have people like you on our side who are figuring it out.
Well, I'm going to go into a little further. And then they showed a knapsack, a fire extinguisher, and then later, I gave the link for that DARPA thing in that video. And I want everybody to see it. So there's no question what they're doing. They even had an example of a cave fallen where it collapsed. And they wanted the robots to be able to go through that into the other side to see what it is. And they also had an example of a dummy laying flat like somebody's dead.
Yeah.
Another one, a guy sitting up, a dummy supposedly still alive. And to identify equipment and things like that. And then it shows towards the end of the thing, this is where the second mistake. They go through and you see it goes in one entrance and comes out another entrance. And it says, oh, this is the Army's entrance.
Yeah.
You saw that. Yeah, it's the Army's entrance. So now you know what's going on. You write that like that. And I was told by someone in the concrete business and also in making generators that they've sold thousands to the government. It was for these things all over the country.
And let's be really clear, they're not building these secret tunnels that they're hiding money in order to create. They're not doing this for us. We're not going to go down in the tunnels and live with them.
It's for the elites. And the mistake they did was this, and you have to, now I had it in the beginning of video series 4 is on causes of ice age and polar reversals. But I go into the behavior or what happened with the CIA. Now, the reason I know the CIA was given this job, I don't know if it was by Nixon. It all happened after we brought the samples back from the moon. The glass beads with the fission tracks in it, the glazing on the surface of the moon.
Which I like.
They knew that was the other part. You're going to say Apollo.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. They hide things in plain sight. Just
Apollo is the sun god, by the way, for anyone listening. Sun god on the moon. They're trying to figure out what's going on with the sun.
They take the Greek sun god was Apollo, so they make the mission to go to the moon the Apollo mission. So they have the Greek sun god going to the moon to bring back the samples to prove that the sun knows it. And they created NASA. It passed July 30th, 1958, which is about 6 months after December of 57 when the sun went nuts. And I show that in the beginning of that video, 5G and Series 4.
So
there's no question I'm right.
Someone was smart enough to notice the sun going nuts and be like, I wonder what this means for our future and what it means for our past. And they went looking for the evidence, right? Because this kind of all follows.
Listen, they've been lying to us for a long time. The father of global warming being caused by carbon CO2 was William Boucher from Lamont Doherty, a branch of Columbia University, who has been well known to be infiltrated by the CIA up, down, and sideways.
Yeah.
They love that place for some reason. They love communists, maybe.
They love
so anyway, they got a lot of communist professors there.
Yeah, and most universities, honestly, at this
point.
Well,
they had one in an Irish guy in literature department or English department who was actively going for and wanting the Palestinians to go murder as many Jews as possible. Lovely people. And he's still at his job, no problem. Yeah. Now you understand what you're dealing with. So, they flaunt it in our face. Yeah. They created the NASA to bring the samples in our whole solar system, on the moon. It did our sun nova. And I remember a journal article that said very clearly, is our model of the sun correct? And they found out it is not. Mm-hmm. And I must have read tens of thousands of journal articles over the years. And, a lot of it's up here. The mistake that the CIA made is, one, they've been brainwashing 2.5 generations of scientists with this crap. So they're going to them
with the global warming hoax. They've been brainwashing them with the global warming hoax.
Oh, it's everything. Everything that had to do with cosmic rays,
materialism,
fission tracks. I showed in in the previous 5F,
Yeah.
where I compared the journal Nature, which is done in England, and the journal Science is done in the United States. And I searched for how many times the article showed up for cosmic rays, and the other one was fission tracks. And very few fission tracks, almost very, very few on the science side. And after the stuff was brought back from the moon, stuff like that almost disappears. And on the nature side, there was plenty still. I know it took them longer to figure this thing out, about 5 years longer than we had. This is basically the greatest secret the country has. There's no greater secret. And as proven by the very fact that they spent $21 trillion that we know of. Actually, it's more than that, because remember the stuff that they budgeted for that was really for this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's well over $21 trillion.
Jeez.
You know, they didn't lose it. I'm an accountant. That was my background originally. And there's a purchase order. Well, actually, I'll say there's a requisition, a purchase order. Then there's receiving documents that people have signed for. And then finally, a check is cut. So therefore, there's plenty of paper trail.
Yeah,
They just didn't tell those two reporters, hey, guess what? We're not going to tell you.
Like, this is what we actually spent the money on. Yeah, I like that you point that out. It's not lost. They know where it is. We are just not allowed to know where it is. Like, they're not going to not keep track of what is happening and what they've done. They're just not going to show it to us.
I'll tell you the danger right now, which startled me, is I think partially because I did the videos and I said a drop dead date and where it was. The Torah actually gives an exact month, the day, and the year. I'm not kidding.
And it agrees with your date.
Yeah, I found it's in Genesis, and it gives the month and day and the sort of know when the skies opened up. It's the second month, 17th day, and they give the year 2046. If you add up the genealogies of from Adam to Abraham when they had their first kid, except Adam is really his third kid, it totals 2046. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
Now, Moses couldn't have known that because it's the Christian calendar.
Yeah.
People said, they're trying to reconcile calendars. They said, no, it doesn't matter. Forget that. This is the calendar we use today. That's the message for us. And that's it. Video series 7 really tests where we have free will. And the reason I say that is in 94, I realized I connected the two things and the dates. And I took their drop dead date, turned out to be October 16, 2046. So I went back every 12,068 days from that drop dead date, and I found over about 50 items in history that corresponded exactly with that. And it usually had something to do directly or indirectly with the Jews or Israel. And the one when I first wrote God's Day of Judgment, this was done in 2007. October 1st, 2013 hadn't happened yet. And that would have been 12,068 days from that drop dead date. Nothing happened, but I said in the book, something's going to happen. I don't know what yet, something's going to happen. So we know how much Obama loved Israel. He doesn't like Jews, except that they're left-wing Marxists. Those are the only Jews he did like.
Yeah.
And because they're the ones who actually helped put him in office. But so Netanyahu was supposed to have his speech to the UN the week before he actually did. And Obama had him change it. So Netanyahu had to give a speech October 1, 2013. Exactly as that thing said. And what did he say in there? He held that picture of a bomb, a red line across the top. When they build the bomb, we're going to attack with or without you. Now you know what's going to start the war. But it also told me this. This last election of Dominion Software was really a risky thing for them to do.
Yeah.
They took a lot of chances with that, and it's pretty obvious it was
Very
they
obvious.
stole the election from Trump.
Yeah.
And it told me that And his Justice Department refuses to investigate the voter fraud, and the FBI refuses to also. All these leadership have been either promised survival of this cataclysm by the CIA, play ball with us, or else. And they talk about, well, the guy from the Army that I wrote the letter, he wrote back to me.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about the letter.
Yeah, I sent 3 letters to the leadership in the Defense Department. And 12 business days later, I get an answer from an officer. And you see it, I showed parts of the letter on that video 5G. It's all out.
Yeah.
And I realized that they wanted this out. The Defense Department does not like what the CIA is doing. They don't like it one bit. And for them to do, the Democrat Party, to do this thing with the Dominion software, which, by the way, the information went off to Germany, and supposedly, I read the court case filed in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and it clearly says the Chinese and the Iranians had access to and could change the votes.
Yeah. Like, how is that
Yeah,
not foreign interference? That's treason. Okay.
And national security intelligence leader, I can't remember his name, it's not Radcliffe. I can't remember it. Said that 20-30% of the congressmen and senators have been compromised, bribed, or blackmailed. So I have a feeling that because I gave a drop dead date, and the extent of what this disaster is may have caused them to take these risks and do this, because they knew they only had 26 years. It's now less than 26 years before this event happens. So they had to push up the calendar. That's why everybody seems to be against Trump, including the media moguls, 6 or 7 companies that own the media. That's why I'll never go on or never be invited on NBC, CBS, ABC, or Fox, or anybody else.
Unfortunately.
I am the third rail for everybody.
Yeah. They'll happily read all your books and follow all your studies and act accordingly, but they're not going to ever put you up in the limelight or let people understand.
The guy in the Army said, how come, if you're right about this stuff? Now, you did not see the whole letter. He wrote over 1,950 words, and I only showed a small part of it. I couldn't show some of the stuff that had to do with what I put in my letter, which was 850 or so words. So,
yeah.
But he mentions stuff like he couldn't figure out how anybody would leave me alone.
Yeah, it was a really good point. I was like, this is, astute.
The answer I gave him was, well, number one, you run right off the bat, whose theory of what causes the ice age and polar reversal is correct? The paper that they wrote in 1983, which I showed, and I'm giving out to people, I said to people, write me an email and I'll send you the 6 or 8, I think it's 8 PDFs that were mentioned in that video. And when people understand what's really going on, actually, they're hating their guts. I mean, they're shocked, and I don't blame them. They should be mad. They take our money and they want to save their own ass.
Yeah.
That's why I think the Army is not happy with this at all, and I don't blame them. But one of the presidents gave, I know it was before Reagan, because I quoted Bill Casey, who said, if everybody in America believes a lie, then we've succeeded. What the scientists didn't realize, they were going to do this with academia.
Yeah.
And they control the National Science Foundation. And I showed that in one of the earlier videos.
They control that. They control every publishing agent for all these papers. They fund most of the studies, so they know what they'll tell you ahead of time. Like, this is the conclusion we need you to draw in this study. Otherwise, you don't get funding.
Yeah. And the school administrators are useless. They want money.
Yeah.
National Science Foundation only gives the professor 2 months' salary can come out of the grant, but the administration get 40-50% if they want for themselves.
It's just so disappointing that this many people have no honor or character
None.
or
we have a totally corrupted system, unfortunately.
But so many people are complicit at every level in order to pull it off, and I'm like, you don't have any passion.
The FBI covers up for Hillary. She winds up destroying documents and her emails.
And nobody
No
cares.
charges.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the
Comey, who was the head of the FBI, he received $5 million a year as a board member of CVS, the bank in England, who's also the one involved with money laundering and stuff like that for the Iranians and stuff like that. I mean, it's just terrible.
It's terrible.
Absolutely terrible. I don't know what to say, but
Yeah.
they all got a shock. The reason they leave me alone is number one, I know more than they do.
They want to
A lot
know.
more.
Yeah, they want you to keep telling them what
They're
to
getting
know.
free information from me. Right now, there's going to be CIA agents and others watching this. They watch all my videos.
Hi, CIA. We always joke we have our NSA agent named Kevin, I think. I can't remember. We always pretend we know who he is.
It really doesn't matter.
No.
And so I think that's why they leave me alone. I don't have a degree in these things, so I'm not a threat. And I'm not going to go. All the media moguls and media outlets, the major ones, are not going to put me on. So I stand out there with maybe about 29, almost 30,000 subscribers, and
Which is awesome.
who knows that they watch all the time.
Yeah.
But I need people like yourself and the average person to tell their neighbors and friends and stuff like that of what's happening. And Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observer said he thought that some people in the CIA wanted us to get together. And I do believe no organization is a monolith.
Yeah.
There's going to be people in the organization say, this is not fair. A lot don't know about this thing at all. Now they all do. And they know they're not going to be saved. Their children and grandchildren are not going to be saved. They're going to save the fat cats and these politicians who go along with the stuff, and judges and fill in the blanks. It's not my headache or my job to go do that. What I intend to do is I have to find structural engineers, chemists, geologists, both in the countries that I want people to look at, namely near the equator, both in Africa or in South America, Brazil, or southern Venezuela. And you could survive it in Australia and New Guinea and stuff like that in those areas. It's possible.
Which is interesting because that's where a lot of wealthy people are going to New Zealand to create their bunkers underground. So maybe
New Zealand will be a very bad place.
Oh, okay.
It's one big volcano. It's right on a major
True.
subduction fault.
Yeah.
When the Earth stops its rotation for 7 to 8 hours,
Which is insane.
the earthquake is not going to be like 5 or 6 or 7 and last for a few minutes and you're done. No, try maybe hours, maybe the whole 7 to 8 hours, as like the water rests on top of the crust of the Earth, and it's going to keep moving in a easterly direction. Guess what happens with the crust of the Earth, which is only like 30 to 50 miles thick? It's going to be swimming on a heated up sea of magma.
Wow.
And guess what happens? They bang up against each other. And that's why if you look at a globe and that has mountain ranges, you'll see the vast majority have a north-south orientation. Why? Because it's perpendicular to the direction of force.
Huh.
That's why. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's staring you in the face. That's why.
So
So
that, will happen. The earthquakes will jostle everything around. There's going to be volcanoes spewing magma everywhere. There's going to be giant tidal waves. So
yeah, all of them that went off before will go off again. No question about it.
And then if you could possibly survive all of that somehow, if you survived it, you would now be in this, the start of the next ice age that you're describing, where this dust cloud is going to cover the Earth for how many, what you're saying, 11, 22 years or so?
No, let me be clear
Okay.
about that. The sun, the light we see from the sun, after the sun novas, and we know this from other stars that have novaed, like V838 Monocritus, it's skewed to the ultraviolet, but ultraviolet light does not heat up anything. It accelerates atoms and may get a little bit of heating from it, but it's a complicated process that goes on. It may take, the light we see from the sun is from this dust shell, this matter shell, that the center modulation point creates. And that's what gives off this radiant heat, infrared heat, that warms us up and warms up the planets. But if once it blows out this dust shell, it has nothing. You just have the center modulation point. So I don't know how much heat it could give off. And all that water that's evaporated, last time it was at least 450 feet of water, ocean water worldwide that was evaporated.
God.
Now, I have a graph in the book which shows first a big drop and then it goes up. The sun is going to come back and rain within the first week. So the thing novas evaporates, assume at least 500 feet of ocean water. Then some comes back within a few days or weeks. And then it's going to, no sun, it's going to cool down. Now, except in Europe, you're going to get the instant fast ice age. They get the ice age real fast.
Lucky. So
this cloud will then, it represents about at least 450 feet of ocean water. Gets worldwide, it's evaporated, and it's in the atmosphere. And a tail on the Earth, if you saw from outer space, we'd have a tail. That's the origin of comets. And why a comet has a radically elliptical orbit, and it's a big ice ball and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Well, they landed on some, and that's exactly what it is. It's water molecules and these glass beads and particles from the sun mixed together. It's explained in video series 4, the whole thing. But it's complicated. So at some point, either a week or week and a half later, it's going to start snowing. It has to. At first, you're going to have hot, scalding rain come down. It's going to be all heated up. And then hot, scalding rain is going to cool down. Eventually, it's going to start snowing. I just don't know when or how fast it takes for these clouds to cool down and it starts snowing.
Okay.
Except on the European side, that gets the business end of Boyle's law. The atmosphere expands rapidly because the dust is going to hit in the Pacific, the Western Pacific, around Australia, that part of Japan and China, stuff like that. That's where I think it's going to be, around the 180th degree longitude and or further west. That's where it's going to, I think, hit. But the other side of the Earth is Europe, Africa, and stuff like that. Europe, the northern part, is going to get the instant ice age. Just like Siberia last time got the instant ice age and got frozen mastodons. Well, fast frozen. Big animal, 2, 3 tons, 4 tons, fast frozen.
That's what I was just talking about the other day with someone. I was like, I kind of want to be in the fast frozen part if I'm around still, because I'd rather just get it over with and not necessarily live. I know I'm weak and I'm a coward, but I'd rather not live through all the rest of that. And maybe someone more well fitted to survival can live through it. But also, I don't know, like, is that flash freezing? I mean, I'm sure you literally die instantly.
But that's European and Europe. Eastern Africa and Arabian Peninsula is going to get the nova. They're going to see the nova for 78 hours.
And what would that maybe look like to them if you're able to view this?
You have to worry about obviously the heat. Everything above ground is going to burn, and the cosmic rays are going to be deadly. So you can't be above ground on the ground. You have to be in a cave or in a big pyramid. Cosmic rays currently. Most of the upper atmosphere takes care of the primary cosmic ray, and then it becomes secondary cosmic rays. It's like playing billiards. Your cue ball hits 2 or 3 balls and it goes out. The energy is transferred from the cue ball to the other balls you hit. Well, the same thing here for cosmic rays. So you're going to have a shower, but considering the number of cosmic rays that are going to come out of this thing is so massive that we know from looking at the mica and apatite crystals in China, it looks like thousands per square centimeter, thousands. And you know immediately, now you know what creates new species. It's easy to figure out how you have extinctions.
Yeah.
How do you get new species based on an old one? There's only 3 things that alter DNA: cosmic rays, gamma rays, and ultraviolet light. All 3 the sun gives off. Now you know. Nobody could figure that one out. Well, they never mention it in any books. God forbid. You know how easy it is to figure out that the sun causes the ice age? It's simple. And it's never in any of the textbooks. I've checked dozens.
And it's like you
In
said,
Seattle,
people weren't looking
it,
through the right lens. You know, like you said at the very beginning of our
no,
talk, you have to have the
this is
right.
worse than that. This is cold. It's like with the black holes. I'll explain that in a second, just to show you I really mean it and I can prove it.
Yeah.
In Seattle, we have an ice field estimated to be 4,000 feet thick. Do you have any idea how much snow is involved to make an ice field that big?
Because it gets compacted and
I don't
compacted
blame
and
you.
compacted, right?
It isn't written anywhere in any textbook. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out the weight and density of snow, and it's a big variation. So I took an average, and it comes out to a ratio of 4.86 feet of snow gives you 1 foot of glacial ice.
1 foot.
So you multiply that out 4,000 feet, you wind up with a snowfall of 19,400 feet, give or take a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 feet. This is not a normal snowfall, folks.
Yeah, no.
Anyone who says it is a moron. You cannot learn anything from that idiot. It's as simple as that. So it's simple. How do you get an ice field? You have to have snow. How do you get snow? You have to have clouds. How do you get clouds? Evaporation. So you have massive amounts of heat applied to the oceans that become clouds that drop down on the land in the form of snow until all that 450 feet of ocean water evaporated comes back down in the form of ice and snow. Now you understand the problem? Now you understand. Clear as a bell. Now in black holes, just because I mentioned it, it can't be real. Everybody says this, black holes in the center of a galaxy. Okay. This I think I put in video series 1. I think it was 8 or 7. It's all black hole stuff. It's very simple. And you're all going to scratch your head and say, why didn't they think that? The current model of a black hole, how you want getting one, is you have a very big star. It uses up all its hydrogen and helium and gets down to an iron core or something like that, they claim. And then finally, it gives everything off and it collapses down, blows up. And then all you left was a singularity, a black hole in the middle. Now, that means the star who created the black hole has to have a greater mass than that black hole because it used up a lot of energy and crap like that. Okay, now they say there's a black hole in the center of galaxies. Now, these people are profoundly stupid because they didn't read why they originally said it and why they hung their hat on Stephen Hawking's works, because they didn't bother going that far back in the journals. But, okay, so you have a black hole in the center of a galaxy. Now, that means there had to have been, now, some of these galaxies are like ours, I think 1.5 billion stars. No, it's probably 2, 3, 4 billion. You can't see them all because of dust. They have one galaxy they estimate as 100 trillion stars. So that means there has to be a star out there that has a mass greater than the black hole that's in the center of a galaxy that's pouring out billions of stars in 180 degrees from each other. There's nothing in the formulas for black holes that say you can have a shoot 180 degrees out of it. And you're not looking at dust. Anyone says this dust is beyond stupid. You don't see dust. You're seeing open clusters and globular clusters when it's that far away. And that's it. So in other words, go find me a star that has a mass greater than the galaxies we see out there. You can't do it, can you? No. That's how stupid it is, which led me to believe, and I said in the video, if I could figure this thing out, a bunch of astrophysicists must have also. Then why are they lying?
Or were they silenced?
To save their profession? To save their profession? Well, they want to keep getting grant money for papers they submit. That's what happened to Thomas Gold, the late Thomas Gold. His job was to figure out where these small craters on the moon, glass on the inside of them, and they were as much as a yard wide, 2 yards wide. How come? And he came up with it. He said it in the paper, and I got the paper. And he said, if there was a near nova, it would explain all of it.
How convenient.
NASA got rid of him, didn't fund him anymore, and he was done. That's That's told everybody what's going on. They're controlling this thing through the sciences. So if you're a PhD in physics, astrophysics, your degree is probably not worth the paper it's printed on for what they did to you. Blame them, not me. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's to fool all of us, the public, including them. So they got advice from people, the CIA, what to build for shelters. Great. They work great for nuclear warfare and bomb, but that's not what they're spending $21+ trillion on. They want to save their own ass for a polar reversal and cataclysm. And it looks like I'm the one who's maybe caused this speed up of plans because this. Now, if we have now, the problem with the Dominion software is, it means whatever you vote for, they're going to change it.
Yeah.
They're going to put in whatever left-wing Marxist lackey that they could control to run the show. And if it's to force you to take inoculations or something like that, so that weakens, changes your DNA, it means the next virus that comes out, you're dead meat. And that's the reducing the population.
Yeah.
That guy from the Army, he included that in that letter.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Yeah, can you share with us? And
he's telling you, it was funny, the beginning of the letter, he says he's military and anonymous. And in italics, he winds up saying all these things. I don't have knowledge of this, that, and the other thing. But when you read the letter, it's the opposite. He's actually saying, this is what their plan is.
He's saying
they have
officially,
direct knowledge.
Officially, I can't really like ascribe to all this or share all this, but unofficially, here's what's going on.
Yeah, I know. It's like, listen, this is obvious. You have to be smart enough to realize this. I know who I mailed it to, and I know it was in my letter to them. They sent it back. He could not have sent that email to me unless it got approved by the generals and people that I sent those letters to.
Yes.
Simple as that.
That's how it works.
Rightfully so. And DARPA also, 2 mistakes in that video. You watch it yourself. They're telling you who's running that show. Corps of Engineers owns that cave. And I was told that the military is buying up abandoned mines, gold, silver mines all over the West. But it's, again, the problem is, it's not that you couldn't survive the Nova. You might be able to survive the earthquake, the massive earthquakes, and you might be able to survive the ocean rushing over you, the Pacific. But you're not going to survive the snow and the ice. Now, Ben Davidson told me he had read an article, and he was going to try to give it to me, that the Navy bought a patent about a year ago that said that the requirements were to burn through 1,000 feet of ice in one day. Now, that was after I had my video out and explained what was going to happen. They must have realized, oh my God,
whoops,
it's going to kill us. We need oxygen.
They're like, we built this in the wrong place.
They built all these places, these things in the wrong location. That's what they did. So they're going to have thousands of feet of ice or snow above them. The problem is a laser isn't going to do you any good. Ice doesn't sit there, it moves.
Yeah.
It may be 4 or 5, it may be 10 inches, it could be a couple of feet in a day.
Right. Good point.
So as you drill a hole up, it's going to be like a big arc. You'll never get done cutting it.
No.
You'll never get to the oxygen. That's why I want people towards the equator.
Yeah.
The ocean water by the equator will still be warm. If it gets ice, it probably will. It won't be that thick. Ironically, submarines could do it. If they were in the Western Pacific, but not too far west, the ocean would bring them towards South America, Central America, but they may not be too bad. Then they can rise nuclear power plant. You got electricity. The question is, how do you wind up getting it to the
people,
to the survivors?
Yeah.
Maybe a bunch of them will probably be on the Atlantic side, but the Atlantic isn't that big. It could be the whole Atlantic winds up emptying out over Africa, and you wind up with a bunch of ships and subs in the Belgian Congo, sitting high and dry Where are we?
Yeah. And nothing may
Yes.
look as it does anyway. If land is going to be shifting and water's going to be moving, and who knows where's still going to be
Right.
anywhere, you know?
You have a sloshback also.
Hmm.
I tell people it's very simple to test to see if I'm right. This isn't like a normal tsunami. It's not a wave at all.
Yeah.
Where it pops up, or we have an earthquake, it pops up or drops down, and then you have a wave. Ocean water rises up, there's your wave.
Mm-hmm.
This is not this at all. Go to your shopping center, take a shopping cart, take a pie pan with you, a rectangular one, a good size, put it in the bottom of the shopping cart, fill it with water that you buy in the supermarket, slowly increase your speed to about 2 miles an hour and then stop short. And just watch the water, what it does.
Yeah.
It comes back to you, the backslash. You'll understand what the oceans are going to do. This isn't like a wave. All of a sudden, this thing comes towards you really fast. The continental shelf will be first 200, 300, 400 feet. And then you get the good stuff. 4, 5, 10, 12,000 feet coming towards you. On the West Coast, that's what you'd have. You can't get away from it. One of my fans is a engineer, and he tried to calculate. I showed his graph in the video, 5G, what the speed of the wave would be. And he also calculated, which I didn't show, how high the wave would go at those speeds once it hit the continental shelf. It goes up like that. And so one of them, it's like 36,000 feet. And we both agree, can't do that. It better not do that. But we don't know the full impact of what this thing could do.
Yeah.
But that is why so few people survive this thing.
And it's kind of amazing to me that we have anything left over from previous civilizations who seem to have survived at least some things intact, like that Hebrew alphabet being the, code.
It was in a cave.
And some of these.
It was deep in a cave. That's why.
And some of these, but even then, like, wouldn't you'd have to, I don't know, it feels like there have to be some sort of providence or really advanced knowledge of this cave we will have access to still however many years in the future, even though everything's shifting and changing geologically.
Moses gave the clues about the hill and also the cave and stuff like that. And one day it will be found. I've asked a two-part question to over 300 people. And I'll ask you the question, and your whole audience is going to hear this. So if someone found the Ark of the Covenant, would it change your outlook or viewpoint on religion or a religion, or how would it affect your life? There's your question.
I mean, it would give me, it wouldn't confirm nor deny any religious claims except that it existed. And then I would need to know what is it actually, right? Because
when I asked that question, a lot of young people, over 25% thought it was Noah's Ark.
Oh.
They did not know of the Ark of the Covenant at all.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, people are very ignorant.
Unfortunately, it wasn't like that. Even in the 19th century, it wasn't like that.
No. When people are like, oh, that person only had an 8th grade education, I'm like, you go look at the 8th grade test from back, in the day. It was insane. No one I know could pass it, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I think you could, but you know what I mean? Like, just regular people I know, nobody could pass it.
Yeah, they did this deliberately.
Yeah.
Now, second part of the question. What if someone found the Ark of the Covenant and got it to work and it talked? What's your answer?
Well, now that I've talked to you, I would be like, well, this is, like you said, the voice of God, the programmer, talking to us, right? But before that, I still might have thought this is God, but who knows what that still means. I still wouldn't know exactly what that meant.
You know what the most common answer I got?
What?
When they didn't know me? Dead silence. They didn't know how to answer.
What do you
mean? They didn't.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what you're describing, I feel like, is just people's imaginations falling short, and they couldn't even consider, for example, why a black hole maybe isn't even possible or doesn't make sense, or they can't even consider, maybe there was this previous civilization, or they can't even consider maybe the Hebrew alphabet is a code that describes how carbon comes into existence. Like, you can't even consider these things because their imaginations are so. I think it's another aspect of dumbing down, that you your imagination atrophies.
The dumbing down in archaeology and Um, in that anthropology has been going on since the 19th century. Anything that went against the church dogma or political dogma, they hid all things that did not fit their religious scenario. And personally, if someone found the ark and got it to work, I'm not too sure the news media would even show the news and show it.
I don't think
I
they
don't
would.
think they would.
Yeah. After this
I don't
many,
think they would.
because like you're describing, this has been suppressed for thousands of years along with so many other things. And so why would it change now? Especially when we have been shown to have so little power, like you said, with even voting or these things that people think give us power and don't actually. I mean,
You know,
these powers have control of basically everything.
that's true. I'd like to think that people would be smart, but I think the media and the media moguls, the one who controls the things, that own the companies, have been promised survival from the CIA. But I think now, if people send it off to the owners and the board of directors of all these media companies and tell them about the video, and they find out this shelter is going to be their tomb, they might start changing their tune. That you'll know I'm right by if all of a sudden a lot of countries start looking at Brazil, then part of Venezuela, and the African countries along the equator.
Well, I wonder if that's part of why.
Then you know I'm right.
Yeah, because I know China is very interested in many areas of Africa, but I think it's for rare earths supposedly, but maybe it's for these reasons as well. And then I know Venezuela's recently undergone all of their horrendous changes, and maybe that's part of the plan to start to do things there. I'm not sure, but I do want to go back because we touched on it and we didn't actually explain it to the idea that there's a reason why, for example, this vaccine might be being rushed into people, and there's a reason why communism specifically is being ushered in, and it has to do with their plans heading towards this cataclysm. And if you want to share with people, that darkness, that might be good for people to hear.
I've read some of Karl Marx's stuff. I actually had a distant relative whose name was Karl Vogt, who was in the Leipzig Parliament at the same time Karl Marx was, and he was pointing out and criticizing Karl Marx for what he did. Karl Marx wrote a book called Herr Vogt, trying to answer him. And so I guess it runs in the family. But communism, socialism, and National Socialism, it was all a redoing of feudalism. That's all it is. It's the same structure, top-down rule, but just more layers of bureaucracy and more people get paid off and more bribes. That is the only thing. China went from a communist state, but when the Soviet Union collapsed, and remember all the demonstrations in Tiananmen Square, that's when the Communist Party couldn't figure out what form of government they were going to take. But they said, that guy Schicklgruber may have the right idea. And they went for National Socialism. And I've heard other political scientists talk and say they have National Socialism. And that's also the problem here in the United States. The Bush wing of the Republican Party and are basically National Socialists, just like Prescott Bush was. He was convicted of trading with the enemy during World War II.
Yeah.
And I think that was the case. I think that may be why Kennedy wanted to redo or take apart the CIA. He knew what they were trying to do. And Herbert Walker Bush was the head of the CIA for a little less than a year. And he became Reagan's vice presidential pick, a bad choice. But, and the Democrat side has gone from Tammany Hall type crooks from the 50s and 40s to basically socialists and communists they are reaping what they have seeded in the colleges and universities. And it has nothing to do with free speech. I remember the free speech demonstration in the 60s, 70s. It's just their idea of speech is only their philosophy, nobody else's.
Yeah, you can
And
speak freely if you agree with us. Everyone else, shut
that's
up.
Facebook and the others.
Yeah.
They haven't, I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on Twitter at all. I think it's a waste of time for me. But I think my purpose is really to get a bunch of engineers and scientists together who have expertise in various fields to come up with plans and for geologists to go to Africa, or get geologists in Africa and South America, where to go, where's the best places to build either a cave system or pyramids, how to build the pyramids, what kind of concrete to make, how to reinforce it, stuff like that. That's the only way we can better the odds of how many people survive this thing. It is that bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, they seem to have plans to depopulate far ahead of time in order to, I don't know, the letter you got seemed to indicate the reason why.
That colonel, he said it, I assume it's a colonel.
Yeah.
Wrote that thing and he was the one in charge of it and sent it off. He flat out said it. They have a plan for depopulation. It wasn't a theory. He said it.
Yeah.
That's why I knew the Pentagon doesn't like this at all. They don't want to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the whole thing is kind of a sad story.
It's very sad.
And I didn't expect in my later life, I'm 73 years old, that I'd have to see my country being torn apart and destroyed by a bunch of crooks and liars, communist Marxists, which is nothing more than a redoing of feudalism. And believe me, the Vogts, my family goes back to the 840. They wrote the book on feudalism for when they managed all of Voigtland. You can look it up, Voigtland. And so, I mean, that's the situation. We're going full circle. And I don't know how to fix it. I'm only one person.
No, but you're doing a fantastic job putting the picture together for people and inviting people to come, work on what could possibly be a solution. And I appreciate that a lot. And that's part of why I really wanted to, and I'm excited to have you on the show, because I hope that every single person listening to this, I see a lot of people who already are in the chat from your channel who already have seen probably the entirety of your work and read your books. But I hope that everybody listening from my audience also, I hope they go watch it as well and read it, because it's, like you said, we're barely touching on so many things that are really important. And I think the picture becomes clearer and clearer. But I was thinking of, and I wonder what you think about this and whether it connects or means anything.
I hope I answered that question, though. Did I answer the question for you?
No, maybe not, actually, because there was something about the depopulation having to do with nuclear.
That's what he said.
What I mean?
Either nuclear war or alien invasion, real or imaginary,
was going to be the way that
they,
real or contrived alien invasion and nuclear war, but also that for some reason it was important to them to reduce the population because then they could store more food and they could shut down nuclear plants before they get shook around and explode. And
I told them in my letter that you also have to cap the oil wells and gas wells so it doesn't pollute the oceans and waters. I mean, the survivors are going to need that oil. You need energy, especially if you got almost no sunlight in the ice age. You've got to stay warm, and oil and gas work.
Yeah. But so Trump at some meeting, I'm not going to know the exact information, but it was not that. It was a couple months ago. It was in California. Maybe it was in the summer at the end of the tail end of the fires. They're having this meeting, and all the governors, all the communist governors and whoever are sitting there, and they're saying, oh, global climate change is such a threat, and we have to act and do this and this. And Trump just deadpan looks at them and he's like, oh, it's going to get cold soon. And I'm like, whoa, what is that all about? And now I'm like, does he knows?
I know. Yeah. For some reason, they don't like Trump because he doesn't really go along with their plan.
Yeah, he said that. I don't know how you couldn't notice that and go, what does he mean by that?
Ironically, the only way he could stop this, he should have done it weeks ago, is call a joint session of Congress and let the whole secret out.
Yeah.
And that's why they did this Dominion software and stuff like that. And then he'd have to take apart the CIA.
Yes.
Literally take it apart.
Yes.
Yeah. If you,
which you,
so one
like
of my
you
earlier
said,
videos, it was section 104A and B in the security law, national security law of 1947. I read it and I showed everybody. They aren't allowed to do anything domestically. So
so
either Nixon, Ford, or Carter gave them the marching orders. I don't know which one it was to do this. It's all illegal.
so okay, let's go back to the Hebrew alphabet being this code. So I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. There's this idea that with using the Hebrew alphabet specifically, you can speak and or write things into existence. Do you think that that's what they're referring to when they say that? Is that this is literally the operating code, and so if you know how to use it, you can?
Did they say the Hebrew alphabet?
Yeah, the Hebrew alphabet specifically, and and I'm not knowledgeable enough. I'm ignorant enough to barely understand what I'm even saying. But I've heard this multiple times that in Hebrew mysticism, there's this idea that with the Hebrew alphabet specifically, you can speak and or spell things into existence. And it's looked at as, like I said, mysticism or magical, but then I'm like, is this like an encoded way to say like, yeah, it's an operating system, like this is the computer code?
No, there's nothing. What's on those tablets, and there must be more of them also, is a computer program. That's what it is.
And that makes sense though, because that's the exact same thing. In a computer program, you are literally writing things into existence. So I feel like it's just another way of describing this, right? But it's encoded. And like an allegory.
There's seven, like I mentioned, there's 7 things that the Jewish legends say about the Torah, and including it was created before the earth was created. Well, it was on a stone tablet. The stone was created on the earth. Yeah, basically, the only thing it makes any sense is that it is an operating system.
Yeah.
You have to basically, I can't remember all 7 off the top of my head, but it's in the videos and it's certainly in the book.
It also makes sense.
Creation of the Hebrew alphabet.
It also makes sense that they'd say God spoke the word, and the word, created all this. Is kind of the same metaphor.
The problem with the Hebrew language, especially the biblical Hebrew, they had a string of symbols with no word breaks. They had to have singers to memorize blocks of it so they knew where the word breaks were. Now you understand some of the problem? So that's the problem that Shaphan, aka Jeremiah, had to make a service story from Deuteronomy. Is he had to figure out where the word breaks were, but doesn't mean he got them all right. Yeah. This is a complicated problem. The whole thing fits, but nobody knew why. When I did all these works, its purpose was to tell mankind what's happened over the last 3,500 years. That was what I wanted people to understand, why we're at this point now. That was 26 years before this reversal. And how come we got to this stage and what happened? So they had a whole complete picture. That's why I had to tell the story regarding the Pisos and Aristotle.
I want to tell the audience right now that to start getting questions ready, because we're going to do a question and answer session in a second here. So if you have questions, start posting them or note them. We'll try to get to as many as we can, but I have a few more random ones of my own. One, you did say that there was 2 possible ways to survive, and one would be finding the right location and building the right structures. What was the other one?
The hints are given in Deuteronomy and also in Exodus too. And the best thing is just watch the video. It's kind of complicated, but not really too bad. You have to know the code systems, and I explain it in the videos, and it's explained in the book. But he does give the clues for it. One of them, for instance, I've been in the Sinai like 4 times, 2 times there, and by the real Mount Sinai. And the ground is broken up Cretaceous and Jurassic limestone, flint, sharp flint. And that's what the whole place is like. So one of the lines that Moses says in Deuteronomy, courtesy of Jeremiah, is he says, you've been here for 40 years, your clothing has not waxed old and your shoes are possible. they wouldn't last a year. Sandals they had walking on that soil and that rock. No way. There's no way you could. And nor would your clothing last 40 years. There's no way it could. It's just fall apart. Just in the ultraviolet light and your sweat, it would just come apart. So these are clues. These are all clues he put in there. He's not lying, something else. The other one is, I know that Joshua, and I figured it out, Joshua's father was Nun. Nun's father was Eliezer. Eliezer was the son of Moses. So Joshua was Moses' great-grandson. Now Moses gives all the clues for it, everything. But he's a little kid at the time of the exit, 1306 BCE. I figure he's 2 or 3 years old. Now he gives the clues for that. And, but at the end of the story, this guy's a grown man, 20 or 30 years old. And how come? So they went into something, what I call it a buffer, and I explain it in God's Day of Judgment book, and I think in volume 3. And they, where time is different, and their information is changed, and they're not there for 30 or 30, they're either there for 30 or 31 days, but outside 40 years had passed. A 486 to 1 ratio. And those are the clues that Moses gives us. There's more clues. And maybe the operating system, I'll give you another one of the clues. It's really kind of funny. Moses leaves Egypt when he's about 20 years old. He winds up murdering an Egyptian. And the reason he was pegged by his father to kill the Egyptian is because the Egyptian must have overheard somebody talk about the cave and where the gold was, where Joseph stashed it. So now the reason why Moses was ordered to kill the Egyptian is because the brother was older than him by 3 years, and he was going to be the high priest. So they expended Moses, and he wound up killing him and had to leave town. So, and went to Midia, which is where Elad is. At that time, a lot on the western side of the Red Sea. And so he knew the Sinai desert as good as the back of his hand. Then when they leave Sinai and they're going south, God says, I have given you an angel to lead you to a place that I have prepared for you. And he says, his name is in mine. And you say to yourself, wait a minute, this guy doesn't have to have anybody tell him where to go. Why is God, the operating system, this is in the ark, telling him he's going to give somebody to lead him someplace special? Okay, so 3 days later, they travel south and they encamp there. And then Moses says there's a fire in the upper part of the camp. I know where that is. And he says, then Moses gives the place a name. Well, they had a fire. Who cares what the name of the place is if it has a fire? So what, a couple of tents burn, big deal. No, when you take the word apart, this is again the code system. It means a hidden room. You got the picture?
Yeah.
These are the kind of clues he leaves. That's why nobody ever figured it out. The other clues are from Baruch. Well, you don't know who Baruch is. Baruch is the grandson of Jeremiah. He had either 3 sons or 4 sons. And Baruch was the son of Neriah. And most of the sons, one of the sons were a high priest, a bad high priest. He winds up getting killed by Babylonians. And Baruch writes as Ezekiel and Joel, much of Psalms, but not all of Psalms. Some of Psalms was written in the 1st and 2nd century. And I strongly believe he also wrote Obadiah. And in those books, they're almost like mirror images of themselves. He tells the story on both sides. He's the one, well, in the beginning of Ezekiel, he winds up giving a name. His father's name was Buzi, made up name. He went back to the judges period for the Ephraimites, the priest class, and one was Buki and the other one's Uzi. He took the two letters from Buki and the last two of Uzi and put them in Buzi and made Buzi. This is how he does it. So it's made up. And Baruch basically explains that God tells him to take his belongings. Now, the city was besieged for a year and a half, and God tells him to take his belongings out in broad daylight so everybody sees it, so they know that the city will fall, and go through the garden wall and go on a journey. And the legends say they go on a journey for 7 days. So you say to yourself, okay, he's a minor priest, he's not the high priest. Why is God telling him to take his stuff out? Nobody cares if he takes a couple of bags of his clothing and leaves. Who cares? The place in besieged and people eating other people. No. His stuff. Oh, and immediately after they see this, the king, Zedekiah, he packs his bags and he leaves too. They know the place is going to fall. His stuff is the Ark of the Covenant. He's hauling it out of there. And guess where he puts it? He gives all the clues in Ezekiel, every one of them, including the stones in the vest plate and stuff like that. Puts it right back in the family burial cave. So all these people, crooks, big mouths, who want to look self-important, if you can't figure out who put the ark away, you do not know where it is.
You think that these people were hinting that they were literally pulled out of time space as we know it into like a special space?
I don't know what they were told to stay in it. But they say only the people that were less than 20 years old would go into the promised land. All the rest stayed. Ironically, if they came out now, only 7 years would pass. It's possible Moses and a lot of people would still be alive. His son certainly would be.
Yeah.
They'd still be alive.
Wild.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's a complicated story.
Yeah.
Let me label it. This is still fiction. It's still an untested theory until someone goes there again.
Yeah.
But that would be the easy way to do it. And theoretically, but what was interesting about in the legends, it says when Aaron died, they went out and the legends say they never saw the sun for the entire period of time of the 40 years they were supposedly wandering in the desert. That's impossible in the Sinai desert because it's all sunshine. It's a desert.
Yeah.
No, just clouds. It's like living in Seattle.
Yeah.
Most of the year. I have first experience in that.
Me too.
It's because the system couldn't generate that much information because it's all the stars. But there's too much information to recreate. So it creates an environment that they see and everything like that, but they can't recreate the stars. Got it? You understand?
Yeah. That's fascinating. It can't be rendered.
Dealing with a computer. Yeah. That's why no one ever figured the thing out. Wow. I don't even think Moses had known that part of it. I know he was told about that it was a program, and it was explained to him kind of what a program is and what it is, but he couldn't intellectually really understand how a computer really works. But he was told, it's a good thing Moses did not know how that rod worked when he first had this discussion with the Pharaoh was Amenhotep IV, who later changes his name to Akhenaten. And because that discussion would have lasted only for about 15, 20 seconds. That's all. We're leaving, tough shit, I'm out of here. And with the rod, the damage he could have done would made everything that happened later a head cold. I'm not kidding, a head cold. So, but fortunately, he didn't know how this thing really worked. But that's it. I mean, it's just, it's a complicated story. I don't expect everybody to either understand it or even believe all of it. It's
No.
unnecessary here too.
But
It's difficult.
I would hope that people at least take all of this in the parts that they're like, whoa, wait, what? Like you have, like you said, extensive videos on all of this, books on all of this.
You have to watch it more than once and let it sink in slowly.
And
I even have a section, I think I put it in the Hebrew alphabet one, why the universe was created.
Oops. I had a question and I lost it. Okay, why the universe was created. Sorry.
It was in there. I have it. I was able to figure it out.
Why was it?
Go look at it. It's on the video. I didn't hide it. I didn't hide anything from anybody.
Oh, I know.
You know what I worry about and I fear? I worry about, you have this disaster that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be unscrupulous people like Jim Jones and others. They're going to start cults and just want the people's money and use them. And I told people in one of the videos, do not join any of these things.
Yeah.
Don't.
No matter what's happening.
No, it's better to have either you deal with the government and they'll be forced to kicking and screaming or something like that. I mean, otherwise, what I see the Diehold Foundation doing, if I get enough contributions, is dealing with geologists there and structural engineers and builders here in the United States to give plans, put it on the website and let them download it.
Yeah.
And to know where to go and what to do. And you can't do it just individually. Yeah. You need a group of people because you need a larger population for a gene pool, a diversified gene pool. You don't want everyone all related. Genetically, it weakens the species. You want some kind of diversification within one race. So,
and hopefully intelligent people and capable people who can, who have skills and practical skills and abilities and knowledge would be nice as well, like logic, but also building. And
I haven't said in any of the videos, I'll say it now. I did say in the videos, the type of people I think will survive this thing are the workaholics.
Yeah.
People who are self-starters who know what they have to do already, don't have to someone tell them what to do, or people have their hand out, give me money or give me a job, or they already know what they have to do.
Them and maybe
they are a success.
Yeah.
That's why the successes may do well and they may survive.
I hope you're right.
Now, if anyone's listening, I would imagine a bunch of them should be like 20 or 25-year-old males, and for one generation should have 4 women, but one about his age or 3-4 years younger, then spaced out every 5 years. You don't want 4 women all getting pregnant at the same time. The poor guy could not produce enough food for that family. Couldn't. You got to think like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it should happen more than one generation. After that, you're going to have a male or a female, baby boys or girls, and that should solve the problem. You go back to monogamy if they want to. Hopefully they will.
Yeah.
The women don't like to have multiple, they're too territorial, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, too many cat fights, and it's not going to work out.
Yes.
But
this is why I say we probably shouldn't have female presidents, but that's a whole other episode.
they're going to stuck in a cave, and they may not be communicating very much out anyway. So the 4-to-1 may work out just fine.
Especially if you know the human race depends on you. Hopefully you can kind of, handle your stuff. We do have a question. I'm sure we have more than one, but the first one I've seen is from, I'm sorry already about how I pronounce your name, Lechesis Atropos. And the question is, when, prior to 2046, will we see obvious signs that we are nearing the coming doom? So will we start to see signs before then, or is it just going to happen?
Well, I wouldn't say it's already happened gradually already. Increase in earthquakes. The Earth has been warming up because the sun's output has been increasing for the last 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
And you know that by sea surface temperature. And I think I've had some graphs I've showed. If not, maybe next time I'll show a graph of the ocean water heating up gradually over a plane like that. It does rise. Increase in earthquakes, increase in volcanic activity. These are the signs you'll see more and more of. Another one, I mentioned this in the last video. There was an experiment done by Duke University back in the 60s or early 70s on parapsychology. They were into it then. They took two populations of mice or rats. Can't remember which one it was. I think I actually have the article. And one group they were going to kill, and the other group they weren't. They were going to feed. And so they studied the behavior of both. And the group that was going to get killed, and they did, were irritated, agitated, attacked each other, even ate each other sometimes.
And it's not like they could tell them, you're going to die.
This is to be able to tell the future.
Yeah.
Psychologically be able to tell the future. And the other side that wasn't going to get killed, nothing.
Good.
Normal. Now, the behavior we're seeing, like Antifa, which is a redoing of 1920s and 1930s communist group with the same flag.
Yeah.
Courtesy of George Soros, who's a Nazi.
Yeah.
He loved World War II. In his autobiography, he said it was his best years of his life, World War II, telling the Nazis who Jewish families were, and he was given by his parents to a Hungarian whose job was to go in and liquidate the assets of the Jews they picked up to send to concentration camps.
God, I hate him so much.
Lovely people.
Yeah.
That's this guy. Oh yeah, that's George Soros. It's the same flag except for one minor thing. They left out one thing. It's the same design, same everything.
Same colors.
They hide it in plain sight.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I know, and you have to ask yourself, like, what, George Soros and these people of the world can come in and organize whatever they want, but people still have to go along with it. And so the people were obviously choosing to go along with that.
Guilty. It wasn't go along with it because they're being paid or it's a salary. They're just as guilty.
Yeah.
They know this is not right.
Yes. Agreed. The next question is from SB Cap, and SB Cap asks, with these micronovas, do you think we have novas where some are less massive than others? Or they're like, I think they're saying, are they like super mini?
That's something that Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers keeps pushing. Mini novas or micronovas.
Micronovas.
There are probably solar flares, but it's not a nova. When you start evaporating 400 or 500 feet of ocean water, you go backwards to chemistry 101. It takes so many calories of heat to evaporate 1 cubic centimeter of distilled water, not ocean water. It takes so many calories. I figured it out. To evaporate just 350 feet came up to over 6 billion calories of heat applied to every square foot of ocean water worldwide to get evaporate 350 feet. If you go to the 450 and 500 feet, you're talking 7 or 8 or 9 billion calories. Folks, this is not a mini nova. This is not a micronova. This is a nova. Yeah. It's just what you were taught early in school that a nova is the end of a star. It's a lie. It's bullshit. Go look in images in Google Images and search for planetary nebula. Planetary nebula. Thousands of them. Star, big dust shell around it. Gee, how do you like that? Guess what that is? The star that nova. Anyone tell you that's the dust shell that made the star of the planet is an idiot. I bet sometimes these guys, $5,000 that no one ever came back to try to collect. No one.
Yeah. That's enough proof.
Put your money where your stupid mouth is.
Right. All right. The next question is from Kyle M. Kyle M. asks, would off-planet colonies be as susceptible to the 2046 nova as Earth? Like if we escape Earth?
The guy in the military said, based on the moon or Antarctica, any place, all the planets are going to get it. The problem is this: you're not going to survive on Mars. It's still going to get the dust shell. Look at the surface of Mars. Those blue beads. That's the glass beads that threw from the sun and landed on Mars. And the problem is you can't sustain life there.
Yeah.
We probably were migrated from there to here when the planet, when was blown too far away. And I explained the mechanism is this dust shell hits the planet about 1,550 miles per second, and it's going to push the planet a little further away from the sun. Eventually, we lose most of our water like Mars, and you wind up saying, gee, where am I going to move now?
Yeah.
Oh, we got Venus.
Do you think that that's possible?
But actually, the chemical composition of the surface of Venus now is what the Earth was about 4 or 5 billion years ago. I'm not kidding. It's the same chemical composition.
So do you think that Venus could become more habitable and we could make the jump over? Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to terraform it, but not in the knowledge that we have now. But one of these novas will do something. It has to create the water. Either the volcanoes do that or some chemical reaction in the atmosphere with the dust shell does something. But we got a lot of water for whatever reason. Eventually, hopefully they will also. But I think this drama has been going on since Pluto. That's why this idea that planets are some wandering blob coming towards a star and miraculously they have a circular orbit around the star.
Yeah.
Then you should have stars that go like this, like that, like this. Why are they all on the planetary plane?
I have wondered that.
Because that sun gives birth to the planets. And it's again 90 degrees out of phase from the poles.
Wow.
Go back to the model that creates the Hebrew alphabet that these people, it's the same model. I'm going to do a video showing the model of the inside of an atom is the same what's going on in the middle of a planet, a star, and what's in the middle of of a galaxy.
That makes
It's
so much
the
sense.
same model. It's the same program.
Yeah.
It's all the same program. It's created 90 degrees out of phase from the direction of the information. Simple as that.
As above, so below. So Evelyn Vincent asks, when the sun does nova, will we have 7 to 8 hours to get underground when we see the moon turn blood red from being heated so hot?
I have given you something, at least the Torah has given you something that is invaluable. I gave you a drop dead date. I figured it out, and God's the one who basically gave it to us. When the sun actually goes, within days before, weeks before, this thing's going to start really slowing down the rotation. That's when you start heading inland. When the sun first starts going off, and the Hindu mythologies and legends describe it as it goes off. That's why I knew they were on the side of the sun, of the earth, when that thing went. And it clearly shows it was going off and getting larger and larger. The minute that you see that, because light gets here in 8 minutes, you head for shelter immediately. Now you'll know it beforehand, you're going to get close to your shelter and that's it, and live in there. And you get deep in, you close the door, and that's it. It's going to get extremely hot out there. The cosmic rays will hit. I don't know if they travel they're not traveling at the speed of light. They're going to travel slower. And I know that from the evidence from cosmic ray fission tracks in glass knives and other tools that were found in Africa and also in France and Italy. So when this thing novas, within, let's say, a half hour to an hour, you're going to get cosmic rays. You don't want to be out. You stay in there. You don't leave it. You're not going to leave that cave for days, 3-4 days. It's going to shake. If you're near the ocean, water's going to rush over the place, and you'll probably hear it. The key to the thing, and I've talked to a couple of structural engineers, is the design of the door, because it has to be made a certain way to be able to take tremendous forces and pressure and heat and stuff like that, depending on where you are. And that's what has to be designed, I think, first, and all the concrete used and things like that, and how it's constructed. And besides, how to make a cave. Most people don't know how to do hard rock mining. I have an idea I know how to do it, but most people do not know how to do hard rock mining.
I
So
wouldn't. This is why I'm saying
it's drills and dynamite. Is
I'm, ha-
basically it.
I'm happy to try to get the word out, but I don't expect myself to be
That's
much
why you
much help.
need. That's why you might need government also to do some of this stuff.
Organize it all.
You need dynamite and drills, diamond drills to drill in, and then you dynamite. That's how it's done.
I just lost the question. Oh, here it is. Daisy at Worthington, and I think we only probably have time for maybe this and one more. So, second to last question. Daisy Worthington asks, how fast do you believe the Earth will come to a stop after the pole shift? Ben, I'm assuming you know who Ben is, believes it could take hours. And I'll just say really quickly before you answer, everybody, all those new people out there, much love to you. Like, subscribe, come back again later, and go ahead. What do you think?
The polar reversal is the clock cycle. It happens all over the universe exactly at the same time. Earth stops rotation the same time the sun novas.
That makes sense.
If you're on the West Coast or near a coast, you will see the ocean coming towards you even before you see the light from the sun come towards you. That's probably the first thing to answer the other guy's question. The earthquakes will start happening right off the bat.
Yeah.
If you're near the ocean, you're going to see the ocean either rushing away from you, or if you're on the east side of a continent, if you're on the west side, you're going to see it coming towards you real fast. That's the first thing you're going to see. You're going to know the reversal has just happened. Get in your cave, lock the door, and don't come out for quite a few days.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's where it comes down to. So, yeah. By the way, the person going to other planets, don't do it. I was going to finish my thought. Same thing if you went on the moon too. If you were on there, you're going to have to get off that planet, off of the moon, come back to the Earth. But what are you going to see? A lot of clouds all around the Earth. It's going to be dark. You won't know where you're landing, because the Earth's going to be rotating in the other direction.
Huh.
And you won't know where to land. That's it. So it's better to just stay here, not go up there. Anything in space is going to be destroyed. Everything.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, so last question then. Spaceman asks, do you believe that the solar cycles will gain strength before the nova?
It should. It looks like this one is building up, and it's not going to be a solar minimum, which I had heard several years already. Oh, it's going to be a solar minimum. Don't worry about it. And it's already started. Even Ben has said, this looks like it's going to be a real good one. Yeah, he showed, I think, in a couple of, he does a very good job reporting the sun. Does a wonderful job. And earthquakes too. There's other guys who do even more earthquakes. Space, I know that guy. He's one of my fans. I answer him constantly.
Yeah.
I try to do the emails. I've done a lot of emails and answering people. I didn't have the time before, and I'm going to try to finish them the next couple of days.
That's very good of you. It's a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. I'm enjoying the questions. Let me go longer.
One more question. This is great. Jay Rocco says, it's if it was an operating system and there were survivors before, wouldn't the operating system do the same thing again?
Excellent question.
Very good.
I think I know who Jay is. He's written to me. It's very simple. Guess why Moses pulled out those 2 tablets and the 22 letters became our first alphabet? Because the operating system, God, helped us. He helped us by luring Abraham to go buy that cave. The operating system of the universe knows this cycle happens. He can't do anything about it. He's software in a computer, and the computer is going to hardware. He's got a clock cycle. So how does he make sure that man survives this thing? He gives clues and hints by still giving us free will, in quotes. If you watch video 7 or Moses 10 Code Systems, you'll question whether we even have free will.
I do.
Not saying it's, I now question it. What the hell's going on? I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a simple explanation for the number showing up. World War I, the British promised a Jewish state, Balfour Doctrine. Then the League of Nations gave the mandate to create it west of the Jordan River. The British reneged because the King of Saudi Arabia said, you're not getting our oil unless you never have that happen. flood the place with Arabs instead. So they did. They kept the Jews out. So what did God do? A little known guy with no money, no family name, becomes dictator of the most industrial country in Europe. Herr Schicklgruber, Hitler. And this is how World War II started. This is going to shock you. So the British in August 25th, 1939, make a mutual defense pact with Poland. Like, how the hell are they going to get to Poland to defend them? Exactly 7 days later, the Germans invade Poland. That was the formal start of World War II for the British. Exactly 3,017 days from that August 25th to November 30th, 3,017 days, is when the UN voted to create the state of Israel. That's the power of this operating system. He made things come out the way he wanted.
So why the Jewish people?
He actually says it. He actually says it there. It was the only one, because of Abraham, that was curious and didn't believe that idols could be God. In a sea of stupid people praying to idols, sticks and stones, trees.
It was an intelligence
fill out the
thing.
blanks, gold, whatever. To have one person like that. But remember, on the other side, God knew he had to do something to help man along. Otherwise, we'd be in loincloth and there would be no cars, and technology wouldn't have advanced. We didn't have an alphabet. That really was the major helper. You can't do this with Sanskrit. Forget it. So he helped. And he actually said, I chose them not because they're the greatest people, but they're the smallest tribe. Just like the real Mount Sinai is a hill. Nothing even geologically classified as a hill. It's not tall enough. And this is the reason. There's a legend about that in Legend of the Jews by Ginsburg, repeats it. And it talks about the contest of the mountains. Which mountain was going to receive the Torah? And all these mountains are arguing, and I'm the big, I'm this, that, and the other thing. And then here's this little tiny mountain, and God says, I'm going to choose you because you're the most modest, and no idol had ever been put on top of your hill.
The meek shall inherit the earth.
Now, I'm going to tell you the real reason. It's part of that. And I want everybody to understand this very clearly. When you are all powerful, namely you're the operating system of the universe, this book would not exist unless the atoms had a program to be in this shape. This is the product of a thought form. You have to look at that. You're the product of a thought form. When you're that powerful, you can afford to be humble. You understand now? That may be the most important thing I could teach people, that if you see a guy who's thinks he's the greatest, usually they have long flowing hair, they want to be an actor, and I've seen this in some of these guys with you say, look at that, what's this guy doing? Yeah. He wants to be an actor, or he's trying to give information or sell books. What is he doing? Their egos blind them. But the operating system of the universe is saying something different. When you're all powerful, completely all powerful, you can afford to be humble because you know what the truth is. That's it.
It makes so much sense to me, just even from a learning point of view, because you cannot learn anything if you're already assuming that you know things, you're so great, and why would you need to even, but you become curious, you ask questions when you're humble enough to realize, I don't really actually know anything.
One of my acquaintances, it used to be my friend Ben Davidson. I don't think he's talking to me anymore, unfortunately. I want to be friends, but he doesn't like I disagree with his idea of a galactic wave. He once wrote in an email to some of our friends that, I had to deal with him. He's arrogant and stuff like that on the phone. I'm not arrogant.
No.
When you know how the universe really works, I know I'm nothing more than a subroutine in this Diehold. That's all I am, just like you are and everything else is. No, what you're seeing is somebody who actually knows the horrible truth of what's going to happen. And out of frustration, I'm trying to teach people so they're warned, so more than 30 fertile females can survive this next polar reversal. That's what I worry about.
Yes.
And it's really that.
There's no arrogance in anything you're doing. And if you're very confident seeming about some of the things, it's because you've researched them so deeply that you really understand what's going on. That's not arrogance. That's just
if I had a big
honesty.
ego and stuff like that, I should have done a much better job of promoting my books and myself. And I don't. I didn't.
And speaking of that, I hope that everyone listening does a good job for you and shares this. More importantly, shares your actual videos that you make yourself and your work with other people, because that is the best way to get the word out. Because people like you are often really bad at marketing, and that is normal because you're very busy with much more important things. So hopefully people can help you out with that by sharing it and telling other people about your work. That would be a wonderful thing.
Go tell people.
Yes.
And if you have some geologists and people in the fields and stuff like that, tell them first your reaction as a private individual. They'll think more of that than if I write to them, even though one day I'll have to. But if an independent person says, I saw this stuff and he's got this, that, and he seems to be proving it, you might be interested in send a link.
Yeah.
It means more to them than if I contact them.
Yeah, it's true.
I hope that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, as small as it is, that's how I found you. As one of my listeners was like, "Oh my God, you have to check this out," and gave me the link, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is awesome!" Yeah. So I'm very grateful for that. So yes, please share it with everybody. And speaking of that, I know we have to end. You have things to do and places to be, and so where should people go to find more of your work and to be able to share it with everybody that they know? Hopefully.
Well, the webpage is www.dieholdfoundation.com or vectorpub.com. Or just go to YouTube and search for Diehold Foundation, and you'll see all of them. All of the videos I put in the description area, all the series there and their links and a brief description what it is. I haven't added the last two videos onto some of them, but I'll try to do it in the next couple of days. But they're all there, and go through it patiently. And some you may have to watch it more than once. Most people do. But remember, I did these to try to save your lives, at least give you a fighting chance. And I guess the fortunate thing is those who think they outfoxed this, they just outfoxed themselves. They're in the same boat as you. They now know that. Those shelters they created will be their tombs.
Talk about arrogant.
They all now know it.
Right? Yeah.
They all now know it. Yeah, that's the, I would say beauty. I feel sorry for all of them. And I understand the situation for the CIA. They've given an order. They did the best they could, but they didn't realize they brainwashed 2.5 generations of scientists, though they got the wrong advice. That's what happened.
It's a pretty silly way to stab yourself in the back, but it is, like you said, it's sad, but somewhat fitting.
Sad. I feel bad for them. I mean, I'm sure many of them are loyal and stuff like that. Maybe not their leadership, but they miscalculated badly.
So, and finally, I always want to give people a chance to share, if you have, just what are your sort of final thoughts or your final words of wisdom, or how you want to leave, what do you want to leave people with?
I think that was basically it.
That was, yeah.
That was basically it. I mean, it's just, there's nothing you can say for this. It's a continuing melodrama we're all living. I'm in the same boat as all of you. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see this thing happen. But if you watch it, read it, if you read the books, there's more in the books than I could ever do in a 40-minute to 1 hour video. I'm sure everybody realizes that. But I do it like it's a college class. You go there, there's no editing, one shot, and that's it. For better or worse, and misspeaking, everything like that, you're stuck with me. That's the end of it. I love it. Most people understand that.
Yeah. I love it myself because I miss being in college and I love learning. And so I'm just sitting there like taking notes, and it's fun for me, and hopefully other people it is too. I think you do a really good job.
As they say, I'm not a pompous ass like a lot of professors I've seen.
Yeah. And you put things together really well. And
That's
your
right.
labeling system is also amazing. So you make it really, really easy, especially for people who might not feel like they have background in science or, these things. You really make it graspable, and I appreciate
I
that.
reference everything there. Everybody can see all the references from the journals on it.
And
Anyway, it was fun doing.
Yes.
And I do love taking questions from people.
And I can't wait to do it again. And I'm going to myself dig in and watch things over and over again so that we can have another conversation about so much that we weren't able to dive into in this episode. So, fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom, according to the master of critical thought and riddle solving, Doug Vogt of the Diehold Diehold Foundation. Thank you. Sorry about that.
501c3. It's a tax-deductible foundation. It's a science foundation.
Yes, I love that. So Diehold Foundation, and everybody should go check it out. And Doug, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
We'll talk again soon. All right, consider how lucky we are. Humans have bumbled around for millennia, and we are still here for some reason. We toy with the very roots of the entirety of this dimension, from the quantum and the atomic to the chemical and the conceptual, and still we exist. We fling ourselves out through the sky in metal tubes and shove ourselves to the bottom of the ocean in pressurized hard bubbles, and we still breathe air on hard ground again. We scream down freeways on combustion engine bombs, half-cocked and 75% distracted, and most of us survive it most of the time. We create concoctions to inject into ourselves with barely a fraction of an understanding of what it all means, and we still have bodies that function most of the time. We peer into the depths of darkness and we still hold the light. None of that makes any sense. We, by all accounts of our folly, hubris, and pure ignorance, should have wiped ourselves out eons ago. But here we are. So stop for a moment. Appreciate all of the ancestors that had to survive to get you to right here, right now. Love the seeming providence that allows us to continue thus far, and thank the few that look deeply enough to come out and warn us once in a while. It might be the reason our descendants can look back with the exact same amount of incredulity and stunned gratitude. And until you master the art of recognizing the thin fragility of all that exists with love and appreciation, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
I heard the Freemasons called you. Man, they at it again. And I'm out to tell the truth once more. That's right. It's on the cracking, unknown in the house. APOGZ, that's right. Hitting the stereo near you. Truth is the best thing. And it's on. Yo, I once thought that I wanted to get Denver on track, but there's something more bigger than that. Something lurking, waiting to blow this state right off the map. A hidden agenda related to September. Doves carved up on the wall next to the highway. Up in the concrete, while rolling home next to where I stay. With state's destruction, Lockheed Martin malfunction. While NORAD's in the mountain anticipating our next move. My heart's jumping and I'm like, fuck waiting. While crooked taxes are burning a hole in my pocket. With a dollar bill in the pyramid that's watching. Instead of having a capstone on top of it, they have an eye with a fast surprise while you're flossing it. Greedy niggas jocking it, politics plotting it. So who you vote for really doesn't mean shit. So save your energy from being drained by the enemy. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, secret agencies with a plan to dominate all of man. Check the records of DIA, strange murals and paintings similar to the ones next to the highway. With pyramids and flames underneath them looking like they're about to fly away. I can't be tripping, but it sounds like I'm on acid. Most people slipping, taken below DIA held captive in the near future, where they won't hesitate to reinstate new laws for a bigger cause. I'm talking about established civilian concentration camps, introducing the military's labor programs. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people.
Feds ain't stretching the truth, the script that he's spitting is true. Pay attention to what's going on or it might happen to you. When it's happening to cellular communication monitor, behavior studied and controlled through chemicals bombing nerves. This murder Jesus ain't got anything to do with it. Religious cynic where experiments cage and lace and in terms of accepted limits. Things I can't explain to the sky when I'm in the Rockies. Chakra systems limited due to the voltage overhead pop. Mind control victims, slap clips and machine guns for recess. FCC will help us speak less, manipulate us through weak feel right non-fiction with the CIA trying to kill me filthy. Talking about the underground facility at DIA, no one feel that place laced with hints. Notice whenever I return home, lack some references in a new world Masonic capstone. Employ an Area 51 workers to build, and I don't mean to rant. In the face of an emergency, it doubles as a FEMA camp. The reactions, illusion, trickery, repeated through history. NORAD's listening in, using technology, tracking where you piss and sleep. Paranoid or just facing the fact. Better watch what you say, it's another day under the Patriot Act. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people.
The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form anything else. Success for people like this is measured in terms of money, which they then translate into power.
Corruption and violations of the Constitution. Secret societies, the push for one world government. I'd like to get corruption and violations of the Constitution.
The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form any